in Boston. And within 5 minutes talking to Srila Prabhupada, he realized that in his study of 20 years, he has learned more in 5 minutes while talking to Srila Prabhupada than his study in 20 years of academy. He took initiation from Prabhupada after his graduation, and in 1972, Prabhupada appointed speaker as president of ISKCON Bombay and trustee of BBT, Bhakti Vedant Book Trust. And since then, he is serving ISKCON tirelessly. I must say tirelessly. And you know that Zuhu project was a big problematic at that time, and he faced so many things at that time. And Prabhupada instructed him to write a book about Bombay Temple project. And after so many years, he has write this book, which has already been released, and you can see on the screen. uh, I will build you a temple. So, without taking so much time, I would like to invite His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj, for coming here and blessing students of Bhaktivedanta Academy. Me, Ekandham Das, I would like to welcome on behalf of Bhaktivedanta Academy and ISKCON Noida team and all our students of Bhakti Shastri. Uh, Thank you so much, Maharaj. May I request, Maharaj, before you start the class, please bless us with your sweet kirtan. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Yes, I will sing the Mangala Charana prayers and lead a short kirtan and we'll speak about freedom. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Sam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vidang Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sandhavati Astrachari Sakarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Srila Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajatacharya Stotra Sutrasri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajatacharya Stotra Sutrasri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Hari Das Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. All glory is to the assembled devotees. All glory is to the assembled devotees. All glory is to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So to begin, I'd like to request the participants on Zoom to turn on your cameras as far as possible so we can see your moon-like faces and it will be more personal. Today's subject is freedom. To begin, I would like to discuss our constitutional position, or one could say dharma. In his introduction to the Bhagavad Gita as it is, Srila Prabhupada explains the root of the word dharma, which is dra, which means nature. Something about an entity that cannot be changed. For example, the dharma of sugar is to be sweet. If it's not sweet, it's not sugar. The dharma of chili is to be hot. If it's not hot, it's not chili. So the dharma, or constitutional characteristic of the living entity, is to serve. That cannot be changed. But our freedom lies in the choice we have of whom or what to serve. And basically, in broad terms, we have two choices. We can serve Krishna or we can serve Maya, the illusory material energy of the Lord. That is our choice. That is our free will. And the whole Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna to Arjuna to convince him to choose voluntarily to serve Krishna, to follow Krishna's instructions. And the verses that come towards the end of the Bhagavad Gita highlight Arjuna's free will and how he used it properly to surrender to Krishna and follow Krishna's instructions. So in the 18th chapter, text 63, Sri Krishna says, Iti te jnanam akyatam guyad guyataram maya vimshasyaitad asheshena yatechasi tatakuru. Thus I have explained to you knowledge still more confidential. Deliberate on this fully and then do what you wish to do. Yatechasi tatakuru. Do as you wish. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that before surrendering, one is free to deliberate on the subject as far as the intelligence goes. That is the best way to accept the instruction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such instruction comes also through the spiritual master, the bona fide representative of Krishna. And then a few verses later in text 72, Sri Krishna says, Kachid echat chutam partha dvayaikagrena chetasa kachid agyana samoha pranashtaste anjaya. So you might recognize some of the words here. Agyana, ignorance, and samoha, illusion. So Krishna is saying, O son of Pritha, O conqueror of wealth, have you heard this with an attentive mind? And are your ignorance and illusions now dispelled? And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the Lord was acting as the spiritual master of Arjuna. Therefore, it was his duty to inquire from Arjuna whether he understood the whole Bhagavad Gita in its proper perspective. If not, the Lord was ready to re-explain any point, or the whole Bhagavad Gita, if so required. Actually, anyone who hears the Bhagavad Gita from a bona fide spiritual master like Krishna or his representative will find that all his ignorance is dispelled. The Bhagavad Gita is not an ordinary book written by a poet or fiction writer. It was spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Any person fortunate enough to hear these teachings from Krishna or from his bona fide spiritual representative is sure to become a liberated person and get out of the darkness of ignorance. So, Krishna asked Arjuna, are your ignorance and illusions now dispelled? And what does Arjuna reply? Nashto moha smriti labda twat prasada maya chuta stitosmi gata sandeha karishye vachanam tava. Arjuna said, my dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. Nashta moha, my illusion is now gone. I've regained my memory, smriti labdha. I've regained my memory by your mercy, twat prasadat. I am now firm and free from doubt. It's another type of freedom, to be free from doubt. I am now firm and free from doubt and am prepared to act according to your instructions. Karishye vachanam tava. I shall act according to your instructions. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, the constitutional position of a living entity represented by Arjuna is that he has to act according to the order of the Supreme Lord. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also stated very authoritatively and concisely, Jiver Swarupai Krishner Nityadas. The living entity's constitutional position is to be the eternal servant of Krishna. And as I mentioned earlier, we have that choice. Serve we must. We have no choice. But we have the choice of whom or what to serve, Krishna or the illusory external energy. And if we serve Krishna, we are free. And if we serve Maya, we are in bondage. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says the word moha is very important in this verse. Moha refers to that which is opposed to knowledge. Actually, real knowledge is the understanding that every living being is eternally the servitor of the Lord. But instead of thinking oneself in that position, the living entity thinks he's not a servant, that he's the master of the material world, for he wants to lord it over the material nature. That is his illusion. This illusion can be overcome by the mercy of the Lord or by the mercy of a pure devotee. When that illusion is over, one agrees to act in Krishna consciousness. So, my dear devotees, we all have that choice at every moment to serve Krishna or to serve Maya. Serve Maya means to serve our senses, serve our minds, serve anything but Krishna. But serve we must, that is our constitutional position. But we ought to use our free will to serve Krishna. That will make us happy, and that will grant us liberation, freedom from the cycle of birth and death. Coming back to Srila Prabhupada's purport, Krishna consciousness is acting according to Krishna's order. When a person is in full knowledge, he naturally surrenders to Krishna. When Arjuna understood that it was Krishna's plan, he agreed to fight according to Krishna's desire. Now, freedom is described very beautifully in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 6, Text 37. It's one of my favorite verses in Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, I have so many favorite verses, but this is one of my favorites. Sutta Uvacha Evam Sambhasaya Bhagavan Narado Vasavi Sutam Amantriya Vinamranyam Yayo Yadrichiko Muni. Translation. Sutta Goswami said, thus addressing Vyasadeva, Srila Narada Muni took leave of him, and vibrating on his Veena instrument, he left to wander at his free will. And the word free will is the translation of Yadrichika. Yadrichika is a very interesting Sanskrit word, which is deep with meaning. But in essence, it means free, not under any compulsion or with any material cause. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, every living being is anxious for full freedom, for that is his transcendental nature. And this freedom is obtained only through the transcendental service of the Lord. Illusioned by the external energy, everyone thinks that he is free. But actually, he is bound up by the laws of nature. A conditioned soul cannot freely move from one place to another, even on this earth. And what to speak of moving from one planet to another? But a full-fledged free soul like Narada, always engaged in chanting the Lord's glories, is free to move not only on earth, but also in any part of the universe, as well as in any part of the spiritual sky. We can just imagine the extent and unlimitedness of his freedom, which is as good as that of the Supreme Lord. There is no reason or obligation for his traveling, and no one can stop him from his free movement. Similarly, the transcendental system of devotional service is also free. It may or may not develop in a particular person even after he undergoes all the detailed formulas. Similarly, the association of the devotee is also free. One may be fortunate to have it, or one may not have it even after thousands of endeavors. Therefore, in all spheres of devotional service, freedom is the main pivot. Without freedom, there is no execution of devotional service. The freedom surrendered to the Lord does not mean that the devotee becomes dependent in every respect. To surrender unto the Lord through the transparent medium of the spiritual master is to attain complete freedom of life. So, my dear devotees, if we want freedom, and we all do want freedom, none of us wants to be captive or held in bondage. So if we want freedom, the way to attain it is to surrender to the Lord. Now, the two may sound contradictory. If I'm surrendering to someone, if I'm surrendering to Lord Krishna, how am I free? But you are free from the bondage of the illusory energy. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Devi hiyesha gunamai mama maya duratyaya mame viye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Devi hiyesha gunamai, this material energy consisting of the three modes, Devi hiyesha gunamai mama maya duratyaya, is very difficult to overcome. Mam eva ye prapadyante, but one who surrenders unto me, mayam etam tarantite, can easily cross over it. So this is real freedom. And this freedom will bring us, as I mentioned, liberation, freedom from the miseries of material existence, specifically, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, Janma Mritu Jara Vyadi. Part of the process of knowledge, according to Sri Krishna in the Gita, is Janma Mritu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Dosha Anudarshanam. And that is to be always aware or conscious or mindful of the faults or miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. That is part of the process of knowledge. Otherwise, if we forget these miseries, we fall into the illusion that the material body is a fine place and the material world is a nice situation. But again, Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Dukkhalayam ashashvatam, that the material world is a place of misery and temporary. Dukkhalayam. But foolish people try to make this Dukkhalayam, place of misery, into Sukhalayam, a place of happiness, which is impossible. We can find happiness, but not in like once I saw a sticker. The greatest obstacle to the pursuit of happiness is the pursuit of happiness. In other words, as long as we're trying to pursue happiness, material happiness, that we won't achieve real happiness, which is spiritual. So we are all blessed by Srila Prabhupada's mercy. He has given us these scriptures translated into English, the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, along with elaborate purports to educate us, to give us knowledge. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakrun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. We offer our respectful obeisances unto the spiritual master who has opened our eyes with the torchlight of knowledge, which were shut tightly in the darkness of ignorance. So we are indebted to Srila Prabhupada. He would translate at night while we were all asleep. He would generally retire at about 10, and after 2 hours, at around midnight, he would get up and he would translate throughout the night while we were sleeping to give us these books. And during the day, he preaching, guiding disciples, writing letters, speaking about Krishna consciousness. So we should honor the effort that Srila Prabhupada made to give us these books. We should honor that effort by reading the books, and not just as a theoretical exercise, but to get guidance in our lives, to apply what Srila Prabhupada instructed in his books in our practical lives. So I'm very happy to have had this opportunity to speak to the Bhakti Shastri students at the Bhaktivedanta Academy and to all of you. And now, in the 15 minutes remaining, we can have questions and comments. So if you have a question or comment, please raise your hand.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. So students, if you have any question, you can ask Maharaj or just write to me in chat box and I will forward the question to Maharaj. Maharaj, we have sent you a question on your chat. If you could read question and answer it, please.
Well, is the person who wrote the question on the call? I mean, I'd like to see the person face, It's a good question, very good question. Is it from you?
No, Maharaj, it is not for me.
All right, anyway. Maharaj, sometimes it feels so nice in the association of devotees when we study together, do kirtan, or have prasadam together. I think that's so nice that I don't feel like I need freedom from this material world as long as I am surrounded by the Vaishnavas. Is it right or wrong to feel this way, Maharaj? It's not wrong, but I would say the phrasing of the question is wrong, because I would say when you're associating with devotees, studying, doing kirtan, and having prasadam together, you're not in the material world. You're in the spiritual world. What is the definition of material and spiritual? Material means for my sense gratification, and spiritual means for Krishna's pleasure. And Srila Prabhupada said that all of his temples were Vaikuntha. So as long as we keep Krishna in the center and act for Krishna's pleasure and Srila Prabhupada's pleasure, Parampara's pleasure, then we're not really in the material world in one sense. Yeah. In one conversation in Mayapur, Jayapataka Swami, His Holiness Jayapataka Swami, raised the point with Srila Prabhupada that going back to Godhead really means being engaged in pure devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada agreed, yes. Yes. It's more a matter of consciousness rather than a geographical location. Although if you do go back to Godhead, you will have the right consciousness. I mean, you have to have the right consciousness to go back to Godhead in that sense. But you can be back to Godhead even here. I see some hands up. Vikas.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, we have heard that Prabhupada helped you during the building of Juhu temple, and though he was not physically present with you, but you always had his presence. Can you share some of the moments how you felt when he was not with you, but you still helped him the made this temple?
Well, in his dedication to his translation of Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada writes, dedicated to my spiritual master, Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. He lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. So, as you may have heard, there are two ways of associating: by Vani, which means words or instructions, and by Vapu, which means physical presence. And as Srila Prabhupada has said, and as we all know, Vapu may or may not be appreciable depending on the circumstances, but Vani, or the words or the instructions, is always there. So when Srila Prabhupada was not in Bombay, we were always thinking of his instructions, and in that way we were getting his association, and in our sincere endeavors to serve his instructions, we felt his presence and mercy. Yeah. But even when he was not there, he was available by letter. I mean, we didn't have email or anything like that back then. At best we had telegrams or telex, but Srila Prabhupada didn't want us to use telex. So basically we had letters. And although there's some delay, several days maybe for the letter to reach him, and then another few days for the reply to come back, we did have ongoing guidance. And in that gap between when we wrote him and when we got his reply, we prayed for his guidance and inspiration. And he also emphasized offenseless chanting. Once Satsvarupa Maharaj asked Srila Prabhupada. Of course, it was in a different type of context, but it can apply here. But he asked Srila Prabhupada, now you are here, so we can ask you our questions, but what about in the future when you're not here? How will we get our answers? And Srila Prabhupada replied that the holy name of Krishna is the same as Krishna. Do you realize this fact? And on other occasions also, Srila Prabhupada indicated that by chanting, we would get answers. We would get guidance. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Uh, uh, we have put another question on your chat. Please go through it, Maharaj.
Maharaj, despite knowing that we are the soul and not the body, there are still so many gender biases, even amongst devotees. How do we get freedom from this? By becoming Krishna conscious, by becoming self-realized. You become free from these biases. But I mean, we shouldn't identify with the body. For example, once, the question mentioned gender, but there are other types of biases also. And so once Bhakti Tirtha Swami said to Srila Prabhupada that, Srila Prabhupada, I don't like to say it, but there's prejudice against Black people in your movement. And Srila Prabhupada replied, if you identify yourself as being a Black person, then what's the difference between you and them? So, and another time, I think Govinda Dasi asked Srila Prabhupada, I heard that it's harder for women to make spiritual advancement. Is that true? And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, if you think you're a woman, it is hard to make spiritual advancement. So everyone on all sides should be free from the bodily concept of life, from false identification with the body. But we should be introspective. If we find that we have some prejudice within us, we should try to overcome it. And that comes by a combination of purification of the heart, which comes from offenseless chanting and hearing about Krishna, and it comes by making a conscious effort. I was a psychology student, and I heard of a very interesting study that was done in a high school in which the students in the class were told to select the other person in the class whom they disliked the most. And then for 1 month, they were to be very nice to the person who they disliked. And at the end of the month, they gave their reports, and every single student ended up liking the person whom they disliked most. Usually we think that if someone's nice to us, we like them. But this study showed that if you're nice to someone else, you like them. Of course, if you're nice to them, they'll probably be nice to you too. But it begins with your being nice to them. So I think that's a good policy for all of us, always.
Yeah, Maharaj. And next question is in your chat box again.
Maharaj, you said that the greatest obstacle to the pursuit of happiness is the pursuit of happiness. There's even a movie made on this called The Pursuit of Happiness. I am a devotee, Maharaj, but my relatives have not yet accepted Krishna consciousness. They don't understand this and are very stubborn. How to navigate through this situation and help my relatives realize the truth of life? Well, my general advice to devotees dealing with non-devotee family members is that they should be very nice to their family members, deal kindly with them, and they should be happy. And when the family members see that their devotee relative is happy and is also dealing with them in a very nice way, then they will be moved to become favorable to Krishna consciousness. And even appreciating a devotee is a type of devotional service. So if they just appreciate you as a devotee, that's a good beginning for them. And don't try to force them. Don't become agitated or disturbed, if they don't take up the practices of Krishna consciousness. But just be happy. Let them see that you're happy, that Krishna consciousness has made you happy, and be nice to them. And gradually, they'll be influenced. And of course, pray. Always pray to Krishna for them. That's always there. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Vrinda Priya Mataji would like to ask a question. Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare
Thank you so
Krishna.
much for your talk. This is a follow-up question to the gender bias question. You said that no one should be on the bodily platform, but if we know that a devotee, it feels like there's bias or they feel discriminated against, should we speak out against that? Should we advocate for that devotee? What should we do if we see that?
It's possible that you should. Of course, much would depend on the situation and who is exhibiting the bias and what your relationship with the person who's exhibiting the bias is. But if we can correct a devotee who's on the wrong track, we should, directly or indirectly. And to be biased against someone because of their gender is definitely a deviation from the principles of pure devotional service. And the deviant person should be corrected, if possible.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. There are a few more questions, if you allow us to ask.
Sure.
Thank you, Maharaj. Next question is from Shyam Vallabha Prabhu. Shyam Vallabha Prabhu, please go ahead.
All right, Bo Guru Maharaj, always very good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
So fortunate to have your association, even virtually. Hopefully this COVID is over with and I'll be able to have personal association. Along those same lines, I've been trying to find some more information on where Srila Prabhupada specifically mentioned the term Prabhu in reference to Vaishnavis. Can you elaborate on that? I know Mother Malati has spoken on that before. I've definitely heard from my mother about it too, but I just wondered what you had to say about that specific, using the term Prabhu, because I've heard a lot of different things. And I think I know, but I would definitely prefer to hear it from you. Horrible.
Prabhupada did address female disciples as Prabhu. And he instructed us to call one another Prabhu. Prabhu means master. So when we call one another Prabhu, we're saying, you're my master, I'm your servant. And we should mean it, and we should feel it. As Srila Prabhupada said, we shouldn't say, oh, Prabhu, can you please bring me my slippers? Not that. use of Prabhu. Yeah, I mean, once I was at a program with His Holiness Ritatva Swami in Vrindavan. We might have been there for Yamuna Devi's memorial program. But anyway, he began his talk by saying, my dear Prabhus, Matajis, Devis, and he gave like a whole list of possible epithets for the ladies, in case any, were sort of sensitive about how they were addressed. I've heard I don't use the term, I've heard some people use the term Prabhavi, which I suppose is a female gender of Prabhu. I mean, I don't know. I think Mataji is nice at him, but I've also heard Malati say about being addressed as mother, Mother Malati, that, well, we don't address you as father. So I guess whatever makes the other person happy would be the best guideline. Yeah. What did your mother say? His mother is the late great Krishna Nandini Devi Dasi. What did she say?
Guru Maharaj, she actually said that Srila Prabhupada told her it's okay definitely to use the term Prabhu in reference to Matajis also, in terms to female body devotees. She actually mentioned that a few times. So I heard that debate a lot lately, and I was just like, why is this even a huge debate? If somebody's doing the service of Krishna, and like you said, we're not these bodies anyway, then what difference does it make?
Yeah, I'm fine with addressing ladies as Prabhu, hearing them addressed as Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj. Next question is from Radha Charan Prabhu.
Yes. Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All go to Srila Prabhupada, all go to Your Holiness. Guru Maharaj, there's some more of the comment along with this question. From today's talk, we can understand very well to convince a person to take to Krishna consciousness. One of the most important aspect is to convince them that they are not free. They are completely dependent, and they cannot do what they want to do, they like to do. Usually people feel that I can do whatever I like, but it is not a fact. So this purport which you read today, 1637, is very, 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 very pertinent purport and this verse. So we can understand this very well, that if we are able to convince the person that we are under bondage and we can get freedom, so that will be one of the very good tool. And as Srila Prabhupada translate the word in Bhagavad Gita 264, regulative principles of freedom. Now my question is, Guru Maharaj, not only the outsiders or those who are not practicing Krishna consciousness, we ourselves are very well convinced about that rules and regulations given by Srila Prabhupada are for freedom. Principally, we are 100% convinced, but in practice, either due to conditioning or maybe taken granted, we are still not so strictly following all these things. And how to convince the outsider about this aspect, that they can feel that they are dependent and under bondage. This is my question. It's a very, very important point to discuss today. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, what we presented today is the information that could convince a person, that he or she is not independent and that he or she should surrender to Krishna to become free from Maya. Yeah, as far as devotees themselves not following everything, of course, as far as possible, we should. In one talk, Srila Prabhupada emphasized sincerity, and he said that sincerity means to follow all the instructions of the spiritual master. It meant him, to follow all the instructions of the spiritual master, big and small. So we should, but sometimes there might be a conflict between different instructions or different rules. And once Srila Prabhupada, in a personal discussion with me, he gave the example of Lord Chaitanya's servant, Govinda, that after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took prasad, it was the practice that his servant Govinda would massage his feet. So one day Chaitanya Mahaprabhu happened to lie down at the threshold of the doorway to the room. And Govinda stepped over the Lord's body to enter the room to massage his feet. And after Mahaprabhu woke up from his nap, he asked Govinda if he had taken prasad. And Govinda said, no, because I would have had to step over your body to get out of the room. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, well, you stepped over my body to get into the room. And Govinda replied, yes, but that was for your service. But I can't step over your body. In other words, I can't transgress the rule for my sense gratification. So, yeah. We should try, as Prabhupada said, to follow all of his instructions, however big or small. But sometimes we may have to choose, and then we choose the more important instruction and follow that.
Yeah. Maharaj, next question is from Malti Mataji.
Mataji, Malati Mataji.
Malti
Hey,
Mataji.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please
Hare
accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to your divine grace, Guru Maharaj. My question is, Guru Maharaj, we take association by hearing lectures. So when we hear Prabhupada was very simple in his lectures, like chant and be happy, and all the disciples who have heard him understood his lectures in a very nice way and have followed. But today it's a confusion in my mind. It's like there are so many lectures uh, elaborating many aspects of chanting and association, and so when we hear those lectures, sometimes there are contradictions. So Maharaj, what would we do? Because we have less time, maybe 1 hour or so. So whom should we hear and whom should we not? So Maharaj, just wanted to clear that.
Can you give an example of a contradiction? What did you mean you hear contradictions? I can't hear you.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't remember right now, Maharaj, contradiction, but that time when I was hearing I felt some, confusion. So it was in my mind that I would ask this, but I'm not recollecting it, Maharaj, that what contradiction it was. So, but it was like what to follow, what not to follow. So I just want to clear.
As, as far as whom to hear, first of all, Srila Prabhupada. That's always good to hear Srila Prabhupada. And then you can hear talks by devotees whose talks, inspire you, enliven you, educate you. I mean, you might not understand everything that every devotee says, and that may not be their fault. But I think it's a matter of taste. Even in Srila Prabhupada's books, once I asked him, and he said, you can just read wherever you have taste. So that's important, to taste Krishna consciousness and distribute Krishna consciousness. So yeah, I would say hear where you have taste to hear and feel that you're being nourished spiritually.
Yeah. And next is from Vikas Doublish Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Right.
Maharaj, my question is kind of more regarding this material world, right? We are given targets and which, kind of drive us to achieve whatever we want to achieve in this world and, keep us going. We also get an example, right? If I want to buy a car, so, I would yearn for that and I would toil for that to earn money so that I can buy a car, right? And it can be anything for that sort. And once I attain that particular target, researchers have shown that it maximum lasts up to, say, probably might be 1 or 2 seconds or maximum up to 18 months, right? In normal course, because, or, the person whom I am deriving my happiness from by showing that particular possession of mine attains something better, right? Like I buy, say, a Honda, and somebody, say, my next door neighbor buys a Ferrari, right? So then my happiness is then short-lived, right? And so now in same lines, right, my targets keep on changing, but I still keep driving myself to attain more, much better, and so on and so forth. Now this is happening all in a sequence, or all in a single lifetime, which I have remembrance of. Now, I have a question on, which I have been asked a couple of times and couldn't actually find an answer to by a person who's not a devotee in Krishna consciousness, but in smallest other way, right? So this person clearly asked me that whatever you are trying to attain, even in Krishna consciousness, you are being set a target that, okay, you want to achieve Krishna. But the thing is, in this particular lifetime, and by lifetime is my this bodily and my memory lifetime, I will not have any parameter to actually, evaluate whether I have succeeded or not. So isn't this, and I would seek apologies if I'm using the incorrect word, isn't this, can this all not be termed as just a hoax? Because you do not have an evaluation or a checklist that, okay, you have actually attained something. By the time you move into your next life, whether you get success or a failure in both the cases. So if you get success according to Krishna conscious philosophy, probably you will remember this. I do not know that. But if we fail and come to attain again for the same goal, I will not have memories of what happened in past. So there is no learning from there. So how do we thwart this? And this thought is kind of coming to me as well, and was orated very clearly by some other person. So how do we keep away this thought, and how do we answer this particular sort of situation? Hare Krishna.
Well, whatever progress you make materially ends at the time of death. For example, you may know many languages, but when you die and take birth again, you don't know any languages. Just ga, 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 like any baby.
Yeah.
But what you achieve spiritually continues into the next life. So even if, say, you become only 1% Krishna conscious, then in the next life you begin from 2%. And, you know, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, there's no loss or diminution in this process. But you can also have some experience in this life. There's a beautiful verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhakti Parishano Bhavo Vyaktir Anyatra Cha. It means that by engaging in devotional service, one feels satisfaction and detachment from material things. Bhakti Parishano. Parishano Bhava means what? Direct perception. Just like a hungry person, when he's eating, he feels satisfaction and he feels relief from his hunger. And that you feel in this life. It's like Srila Prabhupada said, when you're eating, you don't require a certificate from someone that you're satisfied. You know that you're satisfied. So if we are, making progress in Krishna consciousness, we'll perceive it. Bhakti Parashano Bhavo Viraktiranyatra. And another example that Srila Prabhupada gave is that when you're in an airplane, you may be doing all the things that you did on the ground, whatever, eating, drinking, reading, conversing, everything seems the same. But when you look out the window and you see where you were and where you are now, you see how far you've come, how high you are compared to where you were before. So even though in Krishna consciousness, in a way, we do the same things. We drink, we eat, we converse, we read, but it's on a different level. And if we look at where we were before Krishna consciousness and where we are now, we can see how far we've come, how much we've improved. Yeah, and for those skeptics, you can ask them to try it. Why don't they try it for themselves? Make an experiment. See the results. Be scientific about it.
Right.
Thank you. Next question is from Suksham Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Maharajji, Dandat Pranam for giving us so wonderful lecture. But my question is the freedom starts when we say that we are constitutionally bound or our constitutional position is to serve. But practically how to convince us, because many times we don't feel that we are bound. We feel that we are free. We can, like you said, we are free to do anything. So how practically we accept it and we convince ourselves that what is our constitutional position. So on practical grounds, many times we forget that. And then everything, the vicious circle starts. So how to convince ourselves practically that we are bound or what is our constitutional position, sir?
Well, if you're conscious of what you're doing, you'll see that you are serving. Even if you say you want to enjoy your senses. You don't want to be bound by any rules, but you're serving your senses. Your tongue is saying, oh, I want to taste this thing, or your eyes are saying, oh, you want to see that thing, your ears are saying, you want to hear that thing. So you are serving. So it's not a question of not serving, it's a question of where to serve or what to serve to be happy. And there's the idea that when you're taming a horse, because sometimes the senses are compared to horses. So when you're taming a horse, if you pull on the reins too strongly or too suddenly, the horse may rear up. So it's better to like gradually rein in the horse. So in the same way with the senses, depending on, the conditioning, it may be better to like gradually rein them in rather than to try to suddenly, abruptly restrain them. One of Srila Prabhupada's first disciples, wonderful devotee, Shamsundar Prabhu. And when Shamsundar Prabhu joined, he was used to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. And I think there's 20 cigarettes in a pack or whatever it is anyway. So Srila Prabhupada said, smoke one less cigarette every day. And then at the end of 20 days, he gave up smoking. So it wasn't abrupt, it wasn't all of a sudden, but it was gradual, but it was successful. I'm not sure if this addresses your question, but this is what came to
No,
mind.
Maharaj, it does do that.
Okay,
And
good.
yeah, and one more thing, like because Prabhu just said, even a very funny point comes to my mind many times. I'm sorry to say that, but many times what people say, or even I think like the terrorist, we tell them that you will get jihad if you do this. And in Krishna consciousness, we say that you will get Golok Dham if you do this. So outside world, many times people say that what is like you are showing something which is just a feeling, and like Vikas Prabhu also mentioned, like who has seen it, something like that. So how to handle this, again, first my mind and then others' mind, that we are also showing something which is out of this world. So how to handle this thought and the other people also? Sorry, I raised that.
Yeah. Well, once a newspaper reporter asked Srila Prabhupada that you're doing everything for Krishna. You're chanting Krishna, you're speaking Krishna, you're writing books about Krishna, you're eating Krishna prasad, you're serving Krishna, everything for Krishna. But what if in the end, there is no Krishna? And Srila Prabhupada replied, even if there was no Krishna, I wouldn't do anything different. Because I like talking about Krishna. I like worshiping Krishna. I like chanting Krishna's name. I like associating with Krishna's devotees. I like eating Krishna prasad. So I wouldn't do anything different. And it sort of comes back to that verse. Maybe I'll just read it because it's such a nice verse and very relevant, because it addresses this point about actually experiencing. So yes, it's Srimad Bhagavatam 11.242. Bhakti. Yeah, Bhakti Parashanu Bhavo Viraktir Anyatra Chai Satrika Eka Kala Prapadam Yasyanasya Yatasnatu Syus Tushti Pushti Kshud Apayo Nugasam. Devotion, that's bhakti. Direct experience of the Lord, that's parashanubhavo. And detachment from other things, that's virakti. Devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things. These three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the same way as pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger come simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating. I'll read it again, it's very powerful.
Yes.
It's beautiful and powerful. Devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things. These three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the same way as pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger come simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating. So we have this experience when we eat, we experience pleasure, we get nourishment, and we gain relief from hunger. And in the same way, by engaging in devotional service, or as it's mentioned here, taking shelter of the Supreme Lord, one gets bhakti, devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, parashanubhava, and detachment from other things, virakti. So coming back to that example of someone in an airplane doing all the same things, and then he looks out the window and he sees how far he's come, I think that would probably apply to you. I'm sure you've come a long way.
True.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Thank you.
Last question is from Raghav Pandit Prabhu. Thank you.
Krishna.
Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale, Prabhupadati Priya Shri Giriraj Swami, Subhakra Sastra Vigyaya Dhira Sadhana Salini, Radha Rasa Vihari Vyam Bhaktya Chakravarti. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I would like to ask a question about reading Prabhupada's books. Please forgive me if it is a little personal. I would like to ask you about your method of reading the books and what you found to be most effective in reading. Can you give us some tips that could help us with reflection and contemplation on the subject?
Well, my godbrother Burijan Prabhu has written a nice article called Prayerful Reading. I could send it to you. But the idea of prayerful reading is that when we read, we should be in a prayerful mood for Srila Prabhupada to enlighten us in ways that will help us personally in our lives, in our execution of devotional service. Srila Prabhupada's books are alive, and they are him, in a way, they are him. And so, we can pray to understand what he's saying, to be able to assimilate it, to be able to apply it. Of course, as Burijan Prabhu also said, the best way to learn something is to teach it. So if you teach Srila Prabhupada's books, a book or a part of a scripture, then you really learn the book well, you learn the subject well. So, and Srila Prabhupada did say that that speaking for 30 minutes is equal to reading for 2 hours. So speaking about the books, teaching the subject is very helpful. And Tamal Krishna Goswami also used to say that when you repeat what you've read, you get realization. So, yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for enlightening us and our students. And Maharaj, we want to say thank you to Maharaj. But before saying, I would like to introduce that Maharaj has written so many books, and you can get them from nearest your ISKCON temple. Life's Final Exam, Watering the Seed, and this book is now available in Hindi. I Will Build You a Temple, the latest book with Maharaj. You can get this book instantly. To order this book, you can call or dial 95553-18101. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for enlightening. And before we leave, I would like to request all students to stay back, and there are a few announcements for us. And we would big thanks to Maharaj, and all can unmute yourself and say Haribol to Maharaj. Haribol! Maharaj, keep coming and matching Bhaktivedanta Academy students. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Giriraj Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Bye.
Am I staying for the announcements?
No, Maharaj, you can leave. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
And if I'm going to leave, then I want to do something before then.
Yeah, please, Maharaj, please.
And that is to offer Vaishnava Pranam.
Maharaj.
Let's offer respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees, who can fulfill the desires of everyone and are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. So then I take your leave now, and then I will let you carry on. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.